To be at the heart of plankton production, scientists decided to anchor the buoy in the middle of a gyrating current. Problem? In the chosen location, depths exceed 8,000 feet. Therefore, a heavy mooring attached to almost 2 miles of Kevlar cable must be laid down.
Curious if you're an idiot or not, somebody?
Lost in the immensity of the ocean, the buoy, its structure, and its chain attracts many ocean wanderers. Barrelfish, amberjacks, pilotfish, and finally, the Atlantic wreckfish. These fish live in the photic zone, that is to say, the layers of water at low depth sufficiently exposed to light so that photosynthesis is possible. By the buoy's shadow cone, all find both food and shelter. Most swim by sight.
Are you ever going to
Some
eat
come
this?
to feed on algae, which grows on the
Probably
structure,
not,
and the
no.
smallest
Okay.
are devoured by the largest. Others, finally, such as pilotfish, are specialized in one particular activity: feeding on leftovers of meals or parasites of large predators that visit the buoy.
TSC days are here at Tractor Supply with incredible deals on pet supplies, outdoor gear, and more. Get 50% off a Producer's Pride Cottage Poultry Hutch, $500 off a Coleman Power Sports Go-Kart, 25% off pools and accessories, and many more offers you'll only find during TSC days. Save now at Tractor Supply.
You're a big fat liar, Tractor Supply.
I want a microwave.
There's one out on the
Including
cardboard.
I'm so
Feared.
depressed about it too. Just because I want my sausage and the.
You can boil
at
the
same
water?
time, but it's not going to. I know how to do it. I'm just saying that it would be easier with a microwave.
The great white shark.
And you can make your ramen so much quicker in the microwave. But at the same time, I want a blender to be able to blend my stuff, but we'd use the microwave more often. Why would I used to? I would like a microwave as well.
The shark has been
Does the
observed
one on the
only in the
carport even
spring,
work in
near
dirt?
the
Is
surface, swimming in vast
It's up
concentric
against the
circles
far wall where
around
the big
Remsen
window
Bowl.
thing is. And I don't know if it works or not. It was the one I had at the high school.
It worked up there. Why
A
did
small
why would it work here?
population,
Oh, I
estimated
mean,
at
it's just
nearly
been sitting
350
there.
great whites,
You want to go
survives
grab
in the
it and I'll clean it
Mediterranean.
off and we can see.
You can
What
grab
have they
it and
come to
clean
look
it up
for?
if
I
you
don't wanna
want.
grab
40 miles from the Riviera coast. Most likely, other visitors to the buoy.
She wasn't grabbing. I
Such
wasn't
as
grabbing it.
tuna.
Here, you're next.
It probably needs to be moved to the freezer and cleaned up.
That's what I'm gonna do.
But no one has ever seen white sharks feeding here, and their visits are rare and brief. David can expect such unforeseen encounters during his monthly maintenance visits to the buoy. His mission? To clean the underwater optical sensors. The equipment is still just as rudimentary, but efficient. Solidly fastened to the diver so as not to sink 8,000 feet to the bottom. Risky dives. David is alone, in open ocean, without any protection. In less than a month, colonies of algae and seashells render the buoy's 20 measuring instruments totally inoperative. To every sensor, a specific brush. Cleaning creates vibrations emitted in all directions, sound waves, which are perceived by all the nomads of the ocean. They awaken their curiosity. These sounds propagate along the structure all the way down to the depths. Fish do not know man, therefore do not fear him. And their curiosity is reciprocal. David, under the buoy, is a man faced with the unknown.
Un jour, au mois d'avril, lors du bloom tectonique, l'eau était vraiment très très floue. Je venais de finir mon travail et je suis descendu inspecter le bas de la bouée au niveau du câble en Kevlar. Et là, j'ai vu un très long ruban argenté qui remontait
Show you
jusqu'à
something disgusting.
Hmm.
Finally got the little bastard in my throat. I get bigger ones all the time.
The
Is
king
that
of
a
the
loogie?
herons.
Yes, it is.
Nasty.
Yes, it is.
Curious, but fearful.
There it is.
There's what?
That fish. Swimming around
For
alive.
the first time ever,
Big old fishy
a diver swims with the mythical fish.
It swims on its side.
Does it? Like a flounder?
Yeah, like when I watched it sink.
Huh. It's kind of hard to tell which is sideways and
An
which is
ambassador of the
upright.
deep comes to the borders of our world.
Bro,
You
it's
know?
swimming like this.
Sideways?
And then he
David
switches back to being
discovers that it
upright.
swims vertically, not horizontally, like the sea serpents in ancient prints.
Vertical, huh? There are some needlefish that do that too.
Could this be the result of an encounter with the great
Oh.
white shark?
Check it out.
To answer this,
That's so
David
cool.
would need to get close and to observe the bite marks. Unfortunately, his bubbles seem to frighten the animal. This
It's like-
accidental encounter is too brief to examine the wound. After a few minutes, the crowned fish returns to the aphotic zone, depths where so little light penetrates that photosynthesis is no longer possible. To be able to anticipate other encounters, David must first understand how the giant oarfish manages to detect the buoy in the immensity and half-darkness of the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay, I'm sorry. Usually you like it when I pick you up.
Luckily
In a
for
mood
him,
today, I
at
guess.
thousands of miles from the buoy, a series of extraordinary events was going to enable scientists to reveal unknown facets of the
so hot.
biology of this mythical fish.
Probably. I get grumpy when I'm hot too, so I can't really say nothing.
In Japan, a giant oarfish goes by the strange name of Ryugu no Tsukai, meaning
Never
messenger of
pronounced
the
that.
palace of the gods. Over the several months of winter in 2014, more than a dozen giant oarfish of all sizes were deposited by marine currents on the shores of southern Japan. According to Japanese
You only
mythology,
use one
the
page in
beachings
this
of the
entire thing,
messenger
but
of the
still
palace of
taped
the gods
together.
announce an
Well,
imminent earthquake.
I've torn out a couple of other pages
Why?
because you tape them down when you use them.
You do?
Yeah, I've got this one taped down to the board. You tear them off and you tape them down to a board
These sudden appearances
so that they don't
have
curl
never
up when
been
you're painting
proved
on
to be
them.
correlated to
But
seismic
you could just
activity
paint it
in the
like this
region.
since it's so thick.
But they offered Dr.
Mm.
Tyson Roberts, the world expert
don't use
in
too
giant
much of it.
oarfish, an unhoped for opportunity to
You
carry
can,
out
but
systematic
the water
study on
bleeds
fresh
through
animals.
onto the next sheet of paper. So I normally tear it
Its
off.
anatomy would
They're
beat all
so
records.
thick.
Yeah. I'm not using a great lot of water on this paper.
attains a total length of 8 meters, longer than any other bony fish, with perhaps one of the smallest brains, relatively speaking.
To prove it, he's going to use the latest technological advances in a veterinary clinic. The Japanese provided him with a magnetic resonance imaging machine, or MRI, which produces images in 2 or 3 dimensions of a living body. Applied to a giant oarfish head, the veterinarian MRI, designed for small animals, enables them to create images finer than with a human MRI. indispensable to isolate the brain of the giant oarfish with its ramifications.
I'd like to know more about its brain and its glandular system.
Wondering why they have
Oarfish
better
anatomy
MRIs than we
has
do.
basically got nearly all the organ systems and organs of human anatomy.
Pick your go-to pasta and homemade sauce with Create Your Own Pasta, starting at $12.99.
Kids save phones and watches.
I want
Stay
pizza.
connected for every step. Only at Gab.com.
You can't manage what you don't measure. And what we're measuring
Not right
with
this minute.
NutriSense is how well our body is functioning. It's having that check engine light for your body. If you don't have a check
Dad
engine
just
light, the first
fixed
time
me
you're
an
gonna know
egg a
something's
little while
wrong
ago.
is when there's smoke coming out of the engine and you're broken down on the side of the road. That's when we get a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. That's when we get cardiovascular disease diagnosis, Alzheimer's disease. We don't want to wait until that point. And so if we can see the check engine lights, then we're able to look into things sooner and never get to that stage. For over 4 years, we've helped over 40,000 people make meaningful health behavior changes that stick for the long term.
This really is the first attempt, a concerted attempt, to learn as much about oarfish anatomy as we can.
The MRI images confirm the initial hypothesis.
The brain is only about an inch long, and it's about half the size of the eye.
A pea in the head. Here is the size of the giant oarfish's brain. But, however fine it might be, MRI resolution cannot discern the nervous system associated with the brain. Fortunately, the X-rays of the veterinarian scanner will enable Dr. Roberts to resolve a tenacious enigma. How does the giant oarfish find its way in the pitch darkness of the depths? Fish can use sight, sometimes sound, but above all smell. However, in the giant oarfish, this sense seemed altogether absent.
I've examined now something like 35 specimens of oarfish, and I've never seen a nostril, the external opening of the olfactory organ. Nobody's ever reported nostrils in oarfish, nor have they reported an olfactory organ. With these large oarfish, I found the nostrils. And the nostrils are not on the side of the head. They're at the absolute front of the snout, and they open anteriorly.
The nostrils are thus situated inside its mouth, so to catch and locate odors in the twilight zone, the giant oarfish must keep its jaws partially open and continually pump water.
Now, it's quite possible that both of those, which are elongate slits, wider at the bottom than at the top, they could close. So opening and closing could provide a possibility of directional sensation.
The consequence is surprising. The giant oarfish is capable of working its way back up the trail of odors in the vastness of the ocean, simply by making pirouettes.
If you're receiving a strong olfactory signal in your nose, but you don't know where it's coming from, you face in the direction you think it might be. And if it's weak, then you close the nostrils, and then you turn to another direction where it might be and open the nostrils. And if it's stronger, then you home in on it by
What's that going for?
successively moving your head and opening and shutting the
forget.
nostrils.
Favorite plates? Spices?
It's a
meat,
real underwater game of
bread.
blind man's bluff. When the eyes
Cabbage
only an
and
infinite
something
expanse of
else.
blue,
corned beef?
the giant oarfish with
No.
its tiny brain
Thank you, Jesus.
can localize, go to, and remain
Cabbage so
around
it can make more
Medusa bone,
coleslaw, and I can't
thanks to a
remember what else.
particular smell.
Spring mix lettuce.
Could it be the smell of the boy?
Text him.
Lettuce.
Ask him.
That of a food source? Or another scent altogether emitted by a creature of the depths? To make a clean breast of it, David must dive to the very limit of the photic zone, where all light stops. As this is beyond his capacities, David calls upon a specialist of deep dives in the Mediterranean, Italian cameraman Roberto Rinaldi.
J'ai vraiment envie de rencontrer les régalèques. Mais dès qu'on est parti, en fait, je commençais à me sentir un peu perdu dans l'immensité de la mer. Il va être des petits points minuscules dans le bleu. Ça sera vraiment difficile de rencontrer ces poissons.
I don't know,
To approach
babe.
it, he plans on using a respiratory apparatus which combines performance with discretion. The rebreather.
Aujourd'hui, grâce au recycleur, on peut plonger profond et long. on va récupérer les mélanges gaseeux qu'on respire. Mais la chose la plus importante quand on filme la nature, c'est qu'on ne fait pas de bulles avec le recyclaire. Les poissons, ils sont habitués à tout sauf aux bulles. Avec le recyclaire, on a beaucoup plus de temps et de chances pour accrocher les régalèques.
On the way to La Boussole Buoy, David suggests diving under another nearby one, equally moored at a depth of 8,000 feet, a meteorological buoy simply named the Côte d'Azur. It's a sophisticated instrument that measures temperatures, swells, and wind speed, and supplies data to forecast centers. Under its metal skirts, this groaning structure seems to attract more fish in open sea than the Boussole buoy. Its creaking carries over a great distance in all directions. Nothing is left to chance. Gone are the short monthly dives at La Boussole. Henceforth, David and Roberto stay for several days at a time at the meteorological buoy, diving at all hours, starting at dawn. They've synchronized their visit with the spring peak of plankton production, therefore of animal proteins. Thus, if the giant oarfish is indeed attracted by a source of food that gives off a smell, or by the sounds of the buoy, they increase their chances of an encounter. At the surface, velellas. These are not jellyfish, but polyp colonies that drift with the winds and currents. For his first dive, Roberto doesn't go down with a camera, but with a stick topped with a scouring sponge. This is intended to take mucus samples from the skin of the giant oarfish to conduct genetic analysis. David at shallow depths with his air tank, and Roberto deep down with his rebreather. Thus is organized the methodical quest for the giant oarfish. These serpent-shaped creatures are neither giant oarfish nor jellyfish, but salps, animals who filter bacteria and phytoplankton and develop their chain of fellow creatures by hermaphroditic reproduction. At a depth of 120 feet, where the warm and cold waters meet, where their food is abundant, they clone and proliferate. In this organic soup, Roberto made a record-breaking encounter. preserved in its environment. The longest bony fish ever recorded in the Mediterranean. Its tail isn't split, unlike that of the first animal observed by David. A unique opportunity to become acquainted with it before it heads back to the depths. To be able to take a mucus sample, Roberto relies upon the discretion of his rebreather and upon the fish's curiosity. About him and about the boy. Curiously, the smooth, scaleless skin of the oarfish seems insensitive to this rough contact, to any contact. But once its curiosity has been satisfied, the giant heads back down into the depths. Covered with its precious mucus, the scraper is sent in alcohol for analysis to the University of Western Brittany. Eleanor Meur tries to extract the giant's DNA and compare it with rare samples from beached animals.
En fait, il y a très peu de données génétiques.
In fact, there is very little genetic data available. We can learn a lot from a genetic study with samples from live animals in their natural environment.
Basés sur des spécimens prélevés dans leur milieu naturel. Après pas mal de mise au point technique,
After quite a few technical challenges, we managed to extract DNA from the mucus samples and we analyzed it. We found a 10% variation between different individuals from the same species. It's quite surprising for a given DNA sequence. In fact, it looks like there are two different populations, two different species of oarfish, and our sample comes from one of them.
This data seems in keeping with the hypothesis of Dr. Tyson Roberts, who believes that there isn't one, but two species of giant oarfish. In the Mediterranean, the giant oarfish belongs to the species Regalicus glacinae, present in temperate waters all over the world. In the warm waters of the Pacific Ocean, it's the species Regalicus russellii which dominates. The differences in the morphologies of the two kings of the herrings are subtle. Glacinae possesses between 4 to 7 more crests on its crown than russellii. The University of Western Brittany focuses less on these morphological debates than on a most puzzling enigma. What does the giant oarfish feed on in the Mediterranean?
We even initiated some fatty tissue studies. We tried to reconstruct the food chain with the available samples. Instead of getting some stomach content, we used the fat which abounds in animal tissues. There's a direct link between the composition of the prey fatty tissue and that of its predator. Unfortunately, the mucus did not provide satisfactory results. Ideally, we need real tissues, like fins.
A mission which seems impossible, taking samples from fin tips, not from one, but from several living giant oarfish. Another difficulty, Even during the plankton bloom, encounters remain uncertain. When the weather allows it, divers make several dives per day at one or the other of the buoys. David's statistics are eloquent. Out of more than 120 dives at La Boussole buoy, he saw a giant oarfish only twice. Luck does not exist. Only perseverance pays off. A giant oarfish answers the call of the buoy. And it is not alone. How can these open ocean fish meet up here at the same time? Probably thanks to their sense of smell. Still, they need to emit a substance which can travel over long distances with the currents. But what might this substance be?
A pheromone, that is a specific chemical produced by an oarfish to attract another oarfish.
Thus, the giant oarfish is capable of sending out a coded message, only detectable by other giant oarfish over very long distances. And when they're close, the giant oarfish communicate by using body language.
What is the significance of the dorsal fin crests and of the pelvic fin or oars, which give the fish its name? They look obviously like intraspecific signaling devices.
The divers are going to confirm this hypothesis. To be seen by its fellow creatures, the fish with mirror-like skin adopts an astonishing posture. The cross. These static postures should allow David to approach it and to take tissue samples. But he'll still need to be able to swim at its base and force it to remain near the surface. Easier said than done.
Et avec sa petite nageoire qui vibre, il ne bouge pas, il vibre sans arrêt, il est capable d'aller très vite. On peut l'appeler poisson piège, parce qu'en fait, il a l'habitude méchante. Il coule comme ça, mais il fait rien, il ne fait pas de mouvement. Est-ce que pour un poisson, la verticalité, ça représente quelque chose pour nous?
For the divers, descending is easy, but they risk the bends by coming back up too quickly. One solution remains: passing gently underneath the giant oarfish. Over the course of several months, David and Roberto carry out more and more dives and fin samplings. Each time they return to port, they send the samples to the university laboratory. Just like the giant oarfish first encountered by David, most have mutilated bodies. The great white naturally appears among the list of suspects. This time, divers were able to observe in detail multiple scars.